So Johnny Depp won. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Aaron, this is my show Reeducation, and today we're going to talk about the Amber Heard Johnny Depp defamation trial. So first, I want to say that obviously I do care enough about this topic that I'm making a video about it. But I don't want people to be confused in thinking that I care enough about this topic to think that everybody and their dog needed to be paying attention to it like it was the most important thing that has happened since the beginning of time for the last month, because it's really not. Now, that isn't to say that it doesn't have any real world effects. It actually might, especially when it comes to the Me Too movement, and we will talk a little bit about that in a minute. But as far as being something that is gripping the entire nation, yeah, it's really not that important, guys. Now, don't leave. I mean, I care enough that I'd make a video about it, obviously. I'm certainly not just profiting off of a huge massive viral hit that everybody's been talking about. Not at all. But I will say that my honest opinion on it is that I'm happy Johnny Depp won. Now, a lot of people are probably going to be upset about that. You probably think that Amber Heard did nothing wrong, or you think that Johnny Depp may have been an abuser, and you might be right. I might be entirely wrong, and that's okay. We can disagree on this sort of thing. It's not the end of the world. A lot of people going at each other's throats and saying that they're going to literally kill one another because they believe a difference of opinion when it comes to a legal case involving two obscenely rich people in the United States is ridiculous. I don't think any of us should be taking this all that seriously, but I will say that I do side on the Johnny Depp side more than I do the Amber Heard side, because I just honestly believed that Johnny Depp's side was a little bit more believable. Now, that isn't to say that Johnny Depp and his entire team couldn't have been bullshitting the troops. I definitely think that is a possibility. I think that Johnny Depp is one of the richest actors out there, and he's an incredibly good actor, and he has the means and ability to hire an extremely good team, and he himself can act very well and probably make a convincing argument just by those factors alone. But I will say that Amber Heard's side really didn't come out of this looking 100% clean. Now, there are a lot of things that made me kind of be more on the Johnny Depp side than the Amber Heard side, but literally none of them have anything to do with me being a Johnny Depp fan. Personally, I think that all of the movies that he's made, whether it be for Disney or other media companies, they're products to be sold. And he's an incredibly rich person. And if you've seen any of my channel, two things that I really don't like is capitalism and rich people. So obviously I don't really have a horse in the game here. So I'm trying to come at this as unbiased as I absolutely can. But that isn't to say that I'm going to get everything right, or I'm not going to make mistakes, or I haven't been misled in some way. Perhaps Amber Heard was 100% correct, and she actually was abused and that sort of thing. And if that is the case, then that's a tragedy. It could have been that she just wasn't as good of an actor, she didn't have as much money, she couldn't hire as good of a team. All of these factors are important to think about when we're talking about our legal system. A legal system where oftentimes you have to pay to play. They usually win their cases because they have the means and ability to do so. If you, as a worker or as a tenant somewhere, was to try to take your workplace or your landlord to court, more often than not, you're going to lose because you don't have enough money, enough time, or enough resources to actually pay a legal team to fight for you. So most of the time, the person with the most money wins. And that's a tragedy when it comes to our legal system. It's not really a blind system like people like to say. Justice is blind. It's really not. Justice can see very well, and it always needs money. It's just broke all the fucking time. But there was a few things that really made me think that Johnny Depp was actually telling the truth in this whole situation. One of the main things that I thought was very credible was the fact that his story aligned with everybody else's story that he brought to the stand very well. And a lot of the people that were brought to the stand had really no reason to lie. There were a couple of individuals who clearly didn't even want to be there. They thought that this whole thing was a big waste of their time. One individual, I can't remember his name, he was getting interviewed in his truck while he was, I believe, on break from working the front desk at one of these buildings that Johnny lived in and owned a large portion of. And he was clearly not happy to be there. At the end of the interview, he started vaping. He started driving away because the interview was being held inside of his truck on Zoom or something like that. And he kept saying, like, this is a waste of my time, and saying something along the lines of everybody's got problems and he doesn't want to have to deal with this anymore. And I feel that, right? As a worker myself and as somebody who's been working right next to people at the front desk at several places, that's a tough job. You're the front lines and you get attacked all of the time. You're overworked, underpaid, and you don't have time to be talking about some rich people getting into some weird-ass fight 6 years ago that you had nothing to do with and you weren't even there. So that I did find to be credible. I thought that the testimony that came out from the former TMZ employee saying that TMZ was asked to show up at another trial where Amber Heard was going to be there, and they were told to take a photograph of a specific side of her face so she could show a bruise. I found that to be very suspect. And the biggest evidence of all, for me personally, was the fact that they brought a couple of pictures up that were identical to one another. Only a few changes like the color grading and shading and so forth were actually made. Now, as somebody that makes videos myself and as somebody who edits pictures and that sort of thing, when I seen that, I knew right away, I'm like, that's Photoshopped. And I know that because I use Photoshop all the time. It's part of my job, and I could see that right away. And to me, that seemed incredibly unbelievable. And trying to say that those pictures weren't altered, or trying to say that they were taken at different times or even different days, was completely ridiculous to me. Now, another thing that really got me swaying onto the Johnny Depp side was I have dealt with compulsive liars my entire life. I've been lied to, I've been told bullshit stories, and I've kind of gotten a knack for pointing that sort of thing out and, noticing it. Now, that's just my gut reaction. Obviously, I could be entirely wrong, and none of what I think could be true. I have inherent biases myself, and I'm not out here trying to say that I am an authority on any of these sorts of things. What I do know is what I've seen and how I felt about it, and that's generally how I feel. But that doesn't mean that it's any kind of proof or concrete evidence that something did or didn't happen. It's just how I feel about it. But that's the thing. Every single person that talks about this has their own inherent biases and reasons why they want to bring this whole situation up. The mainstream media has their own biases. Usually it has to do with creating a spectacle and furthering a narrative that their donors want them to. And the internet has a whole set of different biases. And in this case, one specific subset of the internet really grabbed a hold of this whole topic and made it their own. Of course, I'm talking about the anti-woke community, the same community that get really upset whenever you change the gender or race of somebody inside of a movie, or, God forbid, give a video game character smaller boobs. These people were having an absolute conniption fit the entire time. And it came across as, the way that it does. Embarrassing, ridiculous, expected. And maybe this doesn't have anything to do with a reflection of Johnny Depp fans, but a lot of these people in this specific subculture latched onto the Johnny Depp side because it furthered their own narrative. A narrative of anti-woke culture and go woke, go broke, and all of these sorts of things. Individuals like The Quartering and alike all came out on the side that you would expect them to, so they could further their agenda and, of course, make more and more money. Being that this is such a gigantic, gargantuan story that everybody is watching. What was it, like over 2 million live viewers today on one of the channels? And these people gained a lot of fame and a lot of fortune. People were going from 20 subscribers to 20,000 subscribers in a couple of days just by bringing the whole thing up. So there's a lot of invested interest in talking about this, and a lot of people ended up on the side of Johnny Depp, not necessarily for the best reasons. Now, I brought up The Quartering a second ago, and of course we would know that Jeremy? Yeah, Jeremy from The Quartering would come out on the side of being against the Me Too movement. That's kind of his MO. He's a garbage person, and nobody should watch his show. And unfortunately, people do watch his show. Way too many people watch his show. But one of the other people that I thought was a little bit frustrating, not more so than Jeremy, but at least equally so, was someone known as Andy Signore. Now, Andy usually does like 8-hour-long video documentaries breaking down Disney products or 90s TV show hits, and that's not something that I'm interested in, at least not when I'm sober during regular working business hours. There has been a time when in the middle of the night at 4 o'clock in the morning when I'm just high out of my mind that I might turn something like that on. I've watched documentaries about office chairs. I'm not well. But Andy very much seemed like he was using this whole situation as a way to kind of pay back a personal vendetta of his from years ago. Now, it's up to you whether or not you think Andy did or didn't do anything wrong, and go ahead and fight about that in the comment section down below. My problem with this is that Andy used this whole trial as a vehicle to kind of push his innocence when it came to a Me Too type situation that happened to him in his past. He seemed like he was using this for ulterior motives, and that came across horribly. It came across as though he was capitalizing on this situation not only to claim his own innocence, but also financially in a massive, massive way. And it was disgusting. All of this really harkened back and reminisced a lot to 2015 or 16 when the anti-SJW movement was in full swing. And we had people like Sargon of Akkad and Thunderfoot, if you remember any of those people, and coming out and attacking people like Feminist Frequency and other feminists and leftists in general that were basically trying to fight against ideas like the patriarchy and so on. They lost their minds back then and went on a witch hunt trying to attack any woman that would come out against them. And if any of them said anything woke, then they would jump on them like hordes of zombies. There was an entire ecosystem built out of that where people would make videos and then people would make videos about the videos, talking about those videos and so on and so on. And it was, again, embarrassing. And in retrospect, expected. This creates an incredibly toxic situation, and it makes a lot of Johnny Depp fans look incredibly toxic themselves because a lot of these toxic-ass people are latching onto his side and pushing their toxic-ass narratives. And that really hurts the Me Too movement right now because what they're essentially doing is fighting back against legitimate cases where people actually have been abused sexually and physically and so forth in the workplace or at home, and makes them all look like they are liars as well. I personally might not believe Amber. You might, and if you do, great. It's not something that I think should be a big deal or that we should really fight or kill each other over. But I do think that this does damage to the whole movement itself. It's unfortunately allowed a lot of these shitmongers and vultures to come swooping down and scooping up this narrative so that they can push their anti-woke agenda and their conservative ideologies and make all of these claims seem illegitimate. And that's just simply not true. Just because one person may have lied doesn't mean that the vast majority of them have. And one of the oldest talking points in the book is the idea that any woman that comes forward and claims that a rich, wealthy, powerful man had done something illegal or wrong, that they're gold diggers or they're just out there for the money. And really that's not the case. The vast majority of the time, these people actually face a lot more problems, not only within the court, but in the court of public opinion, that end up damaging their career or damaging their lives irreparably. It's not a thing, usually, that people will just make up all of these fantastical stories just so that they can gain a little bit of money. It's not very likely that they would make up those stories because they have a lot more to lose than they ever have to gain. And a lot of the people that are being accused of doing these things are rich, powerful people who can afford to spend the time and the resources and the money to hire the legal teams and everything else to fight these people in court. The only reason why the Me Too movement really got rolling was because other rich, powerful people were starting to claim that they were abused as well. It didn't matter that any of the poor people who were working for these rich, powerful fucks have been talking about this for years. It only really mattered when rich people started talking about it and powerful people started talking about it and about how they were abused as well. Like I said, this game is pay to play, but no matter how it got started, it's a good thing that it did, because we currently live in a culture where we completely disregard the testimonies of victims and we don't actually take them seriously. And that has to change. That's the whole point of this movement in general. But we also have to face the fact that we live in a society where when men come out and say that they've been attacked or they've been abused sexually or otherwise, that they can't actually be the victims a lot of the time because they just say, oh, well, you're a man. Why couldn't you handle it? Why couldn't you stop the abuse, the rape, the whatever? Or worse, that you in fact wanted sexual abuse or something like that to happen because you're a man, and men just can't control their sex drives and they're always looking for that. The problem is that in our society, no matter what gender you are, or even if you're agender, none of us are believed when we are victims. The victims across the board are disregarded. That's why a lot of people say that we live in a rape culture. It's not because people are condoning rape, it's because people aren't believing the victims of rape. Incredible amounts of evidence have to be brought up just so somebody can be convicted of a heinous act that is so obviously perpetrated on a daily basis. Women have to walk the streets with keys in their hands because they're afraid that they might actually be attacked. It's ridiculous. The fact that we live in this sort of society is disgusting. And when we live in a system that protects the wealthy and the rich and powerful and allows them to get away with doing this sort of thing to people that work for them or children, it makes things far worse, and it allows for a lot of disgusting things to happen at the highest echelons of our system. Like I said, just because one person lied doesn't mean that every single case is a lie. It doesn't mean that the Me Too movement was wrong. It just means that once in a while, you're going to have opportunists anywhere you look. And it doesn't matter if it's coming from the mainstream media or the alternative media online or the conservative propaganda that you hear on the radio. This gets used as a shining example of how sometimes some people lie, so therefore all cases should be disregarded. And if it wasn't Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, it would be someone else. It would be another high-profile trial, maybe in a year from now or in 2 years from now, but it would have happened. This is the pendulum swinging back from the Me Too movement and people capitalizing on it to push the narrative, and it's to be expected. And like I said, I may have been completely misled in this situation. Amber Heard may have never lied at all. And Johnny Depp may just be an incredibly good actor who's able to pull the wool over everybody's eyes. I'm not denying that fact. And I think that we should all remain skeptical when it comes to the legal system in general. Personally, again, like I said at the beginning, I don't trust the legal system. I don't trust it in Canada, I don't trust it in the United States, and I certainly don't trust it anywhere across Europe or anywhere else. Most of the time, laws are put in place to put you in place, and they don't actually solve any crime. As the old saying goes, if laws actually solved crime, then the more laws the better. Sooner or later, you'll have enough laws, and therefore there will be no more crime. But you know that's bullshit. I believe that the best way to solve crimes is to stop them before they start. Prevent crimes, as opposed to reactively dealing with the situations that come out of crimes. I think that the court system is entirely rigged, and most of the time people with the most money always get the benefit of the doubt, and they always end up winning their cases because they can hire better lawyers. They can do OPSEC and research and find out exactly the right courthouses to be in and so forth and so on. They also have the time to be able to go to court and actually solve their problems, whereas most people simply don't. And even if you do, most of the time the law is completely stacked against you. So finally, now that this absolute shit show, this total garbage fest of a trial and of a waste of time is over, hopefully we can get to talking about something actually important like direct action, mutual aid, and actually doing things to help our society as opposed to being completely consumed by something that matters absolutely not at all to the people of the world. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. My name is Aaron. If you do get a chance, check out all the links in the description box below. Subscribe, donate to my Patreon, do all of the things that you do. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or if you think that I'm totally back-asswards wrong on this, leave a comment in the comment section below. I welcome your opinion, and who knows, I'm probably way off and I might be totally wrong here, and you might be right. And if you are, then make a response video, and then I'll make a response video, and then you can make a response video, and so forth and so on ad infinitum until we have about 9,000 little tiny boxes of us talking to each other down at the bottom of the screen. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Keep evolving.